businessman went to laugh at his poor ex-wife, but froze upon seeing the identical twins that looked just like him. Brandon Mitchell sped his BMW down the dusty roads on the outskirts of Charlotte with a cruel smile on his face. After hearing through mutual acquaintances that Jennifer was going through financial difficulties, he decided it was the perfect opportunity to show how foolish she had been to leave him 7 years ago. It was when he turned the corner onto the dirt road and saw the 2 blonde boys playing in the yard of the adobe house that his world collapsed. They had his green eyes, his slightly upturned nose. Even the way they furrowed their brows when concentrating was identical to his. "Mom, there's a man in a suit watching us," shouted one of the boys, running toward the front door. Jennifer Parker appeared on the doorstep, and her expression completely changed upon recognizing the imported car parked in front of her humble home. Her brown eyes, once bright, now carried the weight of years of struggle and hardship. "Brandon, what are you doing here?" Her voice trembled slightly as she instinctively tried to hide the boys behind her legs, but it was too late. The businessman slowly got out of the car, his legs seeming to have lost all their strength. The 2 boys watched him with innocent curiosity, their golden hair shining under the afternoon sun. "Jennifer," his voice came out as a hoarse whisper, "who are these children?" They're my husband's children," she replied quickly, but the lie sounded too desperate to be convincing. "You shouldn't be here, Brandon." The braver boy took a few steps closer, his head tilted to the side exactly like Brandon did when he was thinking. "Do you know Mommy?" asked the boy with that typical childlike frankness. "Mommy sometimes cries when she talks about a man who wore nice suits like yours." The impact of those words hit Brandon like a punch to the gut. Jennifer paled and pulled the boy closer to her. "Ethan, go play inside with Noah," she said in a firm tone, but the boys didn't move, fascinated by the presence of the well-dressed stranger. "Jennifer, I need to talk to you." "Now." Brandon's voice had regained its businesslike authority, but his hands were visibly trembling. "We have nothing to talk about." She tried to close the door, but he had already gotten close enough to prevent it. "These boys, how old are they?" "That's none of your business." "How old, Jennifer?" The silence that followed was more eloquent than any answer. Noah, the second twin, stepped even closer and lightly touched Brandon's suit jacket. "Are you that daddy Mommy talked about, the one who left before we were born?" The innocent question echoed like thunder. Jennifer squeezed her eyes shut tightly, as if she could make that moment disappear. "Noah, don't say that," she whispered, but it was too late. Brandon slowly knelt down to be at the boy's eye level. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking. It was like looking at photographs of himself as a child. "What are your names?" "I'm Ethan and he's Noah," replied the first boy. "We're twins. Mommy says we're the same on the outside but different on the inside." "Ethan is braver and I'm smarter," added Noah with a shy smile that broke Brandon's heart. Jennifer finally found the strength to intervene. "Brandon, please, leave. You have no right to show up here after all these years. After all these years." He rose slowly, his voice taking on a dangerous tone. "Jennifer, why did you never tell me about them?" "Because you made it perfectly clear that children were an obstacle to your brilliant career," she replied with accumulated bitterness. "Remember, you said you would never be tied down by family responsibilities." The words came back like ghosts from a conversation he had tried to forget. During the last months of their marriage, when Jennifer mentioned having children, he had indeed said his company was in an expansion phase, and kids would only get in the way of his plans. "But I had a right to know." "A right?" She laughed bitterly. "You signed the divorce papers without even blinking when I said I wanted a separation. You didn't even ask why." The truth was that Jennifer had discovered the pregnancy 2 weeks after Brandon had moved out. She had gone to the doctor thinking it was just the stress of the divorce, but the blood test revealed the surprise that would change her life forever. "I was scared, Brandon. Pregnant with twins alone, without a job because you convinced me to quit everything to take care of the house. What did you expect me to do?" The boys watched the conversation without fully understanding the tension in the air, but sensing something important was happening. "Mommy, why are you sad?" Ethan took her hand. "Did the man in the suit make you sad?" "No, sweetheart, Mommy is okay." She crouched down and hugged both children. "Why don't you go play in the backyard? Mommy needs to talk to Brandon." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. After the boys were out of sight, Jennifer turned to Brandon with eyes full of held-back tears. "You want to know the truth? I tried to tell you. I called your office 3 times when I found out I was pregnant. Your secretary always said you were too busy to talk to me. I never knew about any phone calls." "Of course you didn't. You were already with that blonde from the finance department. Everyone knew except me." The mention of Ashley, with whom he had briefly been involved after the divorce, made him take a step back. He had completely forgotten about that tumultuous period of his life. "Jennifer, that's in the past. What matters now is that I found out about my children." "Your children," she laughed with deep bitterness. "They don't even know who you are. To them, David is their father." "David?" "My husband, or rather, my ex-husband. He helped me when I needed it most, gave the boys his name and took care of us for 5 years." "And where is he now?" Jennifer hesitated, wiping away an escaped tear. "He left 3 months ago when he found out the truth." "What truth?" "That I had never told him who the boy's real father was. When Ethan needed a tonsillectomy and the doctor asked for the paternal family history, I had to tell the truth." The whole story began to form in Brandon's mind. Jennifer had married quickly after the twins' birth to a man who agreed to raise the children as his own. For 5 years, they had lived as a normal family until the truth came out. How did he react? He felt deceived, and he was right. I lied to him all those years. I said their father had died before they were born. And the boys, how did they react when he left? Jennifer began to cry openly now. "They don't understand why Daddy David disappeared. Ethan asks every day when he's coming back." Noah drew a picture of our family and erased David's figure, but left an empty space in its place. The weight of the situation began to hit Brandon. It wasn't just 2 children he had missed. It was an entire family that had been destroyed by secrets and lies. "Jennifer, You nothing," she interrupted him. "You show up here after 7 years, well dressed in your imported car, probably coming to humiliate me like you always dreamed, and you find out you have children. So now, what do you intend to do?" It was a good question. Brandon had arrived there with the intention of bragging about his success, of showing Jennifer how foolish she had been to leave him. He had built a business empire, owned a house in one of the most upscale neighborhoods of Charlotte, a marriage to a high society woman. His life was exactly as he had planned, but none of that mattered now in the face of the reality of those 2 boys who carried his DNA and his physical resemblance. "I need time to process all this." "Time?" She laughed humorlessly. "You had 7 years of time, Brandon. 7 years where you could have been a father, where you could have helped raise your children." "But I didn't know." "Because you didn't want to know. You were too busy building your empire to care about what you left behind." The accusation was painful because it held a grain of truth. Brandon really had dedicated himself obsessively to work after the divorce. It was easier to dive into spreadsheets and meetings than to deal with the confused feelings the end of the marriage had stirred up. "Listen, Jennifer, I know I made mistakes, big mistakes, but now I know about the boys and I want to do the right thing." "The right thing, and what would that be in your opinion?" "Take on my responsibility as a father, provide financial support, spend time with them, be part of their lives." "And you think it's that simple? That you can just show up and declare yourself their father after all this time?" Before Brandon could answer, Ethan came running from the back of the house. "Mommy, Noah hurt his knee. He fell from the tree." Jennifer immediately ran to the back, followed by Brandon. Noah was sitting on the ground, holding his left knee and crying softly. It didn't seem serious at all, just a scrape, but Jennifer's maternal concern was evident. "It's okay, sweetheart. It's just a scrape." She examined the wound carefully. "It hurts, Mommy," Noah sobbed. Brandon watched the scene with a mix of emotions he didn't know how to process. There was something deeply moving about seeing that child who had his eyes seeking comfort from his mother. Can I help? He offered, stepping closer. It's not necessary, Jennifer replied automatically, but Noah looked at Brandon with curiosity. Do you know how to take care of boo-boos? The boy asked. I think so. Brandon knelt beside him. Can I take a look? Noah nodded and extended his leg. The wound was superficial, but Brandon felt a strange emotion touching his son's knee for the first time. It's nothing serious, just needs a good wash and a Band-Aid. Mommy doesn't have Band-Aids, Ethan commented. She said they're too expensive. The boy's innocent observation was like a stab to Brandon's chest. Jennifer looked away, clearly embarrassed. I have some in the car, Brandon said, standing up. It's a first aid kit I always keep in the BMW. While he went to get the supplies, Jennifer helped Noah sit on a cut log that served as an improvised bench in the backyard. Mommy, he's nice, Noah whispered. He smells like expensive cologne like Daddy David used to. Noah, don't get your hopes up. I know, Mommy, but he looks like us. Ethan thought so too. Brandon returned with a professional medical kit and began cleaning the wound carefully. His hands, accustomed to signing million-dollar contracts, trembled slightly as he treated his son's simple scrape. There. He placed a superhero-patterned Band-Aid. Now you'll be all better in no time. Noah smiled for the first time since Brandon had arrived. Thank you, mister. What's your name again? Brandon hesitated. How to introduce himself to his own son? Brandon. My name is Brandon. Brandon, Noah repeated, as if testing the sound of the name. It's a nice name, like the king the teacher told us about in school. Noah, let's go inside. It's getting late, Jennifer interjected, clearly uncomfortable with the interaction between father and son. But I want to show my drawing to Brandon, Noah protested. Can I, Mom? Please? Jennifer looked at Brandon, who nodded eagerly. Okay, but make it quick. Noah ran inside the house and came back with a crumpled piece of paper. The drawing showed a simple house, a woman with long hair, 2 boys, and a faded male figure to the side. This is me and Ethan, he pointed to the 2 stick figures. That's Mom, and here is where Dad David was, but I erased him because he left. Brandon observed the empty space in the drawing where the father figure should have been. There was something deeply sad about that intentionally left void. It's a very beautiful drawing, he said sincerely. Do you want me to draw you here? Noah asked innocently. Then our family would be complete again. The question left both Brandon and Jennifer speechless. There was a devastating simplicity in how the child saw the situation. Noah, Brandon needs to leave now, Jennifer said gently. But he just got here, and he took care of my scrape. I know, sweetie, but... Actually, Brandon interrupted, I would really like to see more of your drawings. Ethan's too. Do you draw other things? Noah's eyes lit up. I draw lots of things. Dinosaurs, cars, airplanes. Ethan draws soccer. He loves soccer. Really? I also really liked soccer when I was your age. Do you know how to play? Ethan came running, having overheard the conversation. A little. I was on the school team when I was a kid. Can you teach us? Dad David always promised, but... The sentence hung in the air, heavy with sadness. Jennifer stepped forward to spare her sons the pain. Boys, Brandon has to go now. He has a very busy life. No, Brandon said firmly. I have nothing more important to do today. Jennifer looked at him in surprise. The Brandon she knew always put work first. Do you guys have a ball? He asked the boys. We do. Ethan ran to get it. It's a little flat, but we can play with it. Ethan, be careful not to get any dirtier, Jennifer called after him. It's okay if he gets dirty, Brandon remarked, taking off his jacket. Dirty clothes are a sign of fun. Jennifer watched him in astonishment. The man obsessed with perfect appearance she had known was willing to get dirty playing with the children. Ethan returned with a worn-out soccer ball. Brandon took it and did a few keepy-uppies, showing he really knew how to play. Wow! The twins exclaimed in unison. Want to try? What followed was one of the most spontaneous afternoons of Brandon's life. He taught the boys how to kick, pass, and even some basic moves. His white dress shirt got dusty. His tie ended up tied around his forehead like a bandana during a pirate game Noah invented, and his Italian dress shoes got stains of red dirt. Jennifer watched from the porch, torn between the joy of seeing her sons so happy and the fear that they would become attached to someone who might disappear from their lives again. "Mom, come play with us," Ethan shouted. "I don't know how to play soccer, sweetie." "Brandon can teach you too," Noah suggested excitedly. Brandon looked at Jennifer with a smile she hadn't seen in years. It was the same smile that had won her over when they met in college, before he became obsessed with success. "Come on, Jennifer, just a little game." Against her better judgment, she stepped down from the porch and joined the game. For a few minutes, they were just four people having fun in the backyard, free from the weight of the complicated history they carried. When the sun began to set, the boys were exhausted but happy. Noah had drawn a new picture during a break, this time including Brandon in the family group. "I'm going to keep this drawing forever," Brandon said, holding the paper carefully. "Are you coming back tomorrow?" Ethan asked hopefully. Brandon looked at Jennifer, who shook her head almost imperceptibly. I would really like to come back, but that depends on your mom." "Mom, can he come back? Please?" Noah begged. "He's fun, and he taught us how to play properly." "Boys, it's complicated." "Why is it complicated?" Ethan asked with that simple logic of children. "He likes us, and we like him." Jennifer found herself in an impossible position. How could she explain to 5-year-olds that the man they had played with all afternoon was the biological father who had abandoned them even before they were born? "Brandon needs to go back to his home now. He has his own family." "Does he have kids?" Noah asked innocently. The question hit Brandon like a bolt of lightning. Technically, his answer should be yes. He had 2 children right there in front of him. But they didn't know that, and he didn't know if they ever would. "No," he answered honestly. "I don't have children." "Then you can adopt us," Ethan suggested enthusiastically. "That way you'll have kids and we'll have a dad again." The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer paled, and Brandon felt as if the air had been sucked from his lungs. "Ethan, that's not how it works," Jennifer finally managed to say. "Why not? Dad David adopted us. He said love is more important than blood." The irony of the situation was cruel. David had adopted children who didn't even know they were actually the daughters of the man standing right in front of them. "It's time for you to go, Brandon," Jennifer said firmly. He nodded, understanding he had crossed a line. He put on his wrinkled jacket, adjusted his tie, and walked to the car. "Brandon!" Noah ran after him. "You forgot this." It was the family drawing with him included. "Thank you." Brandon knelt down and hugged the boy briefly. "It's the most beautiful gift I've ever received." "You smell nice," Noah commented. "Noah. And you're warm like Dad David was." Brandon had to pull away before his emotions overflowed. He waved to Ethan, who was standing next to Jennifer, and got into the car. As he drove back to his home in downtown Charlotte, Brandon couldn't stop thinking about the afternoon he had spent. For the first time in years, he had felt truly happy and present in the moment. His house, a modern 2-story mansion in the city's most exclusive gated community, had never seemed so empty as it did that night. Victoria, his wife of 3 years, was away on a business trip to New York and wouldn't be back until the end of the week. Brandon poured himself a glass of Scotch whiskey and sat in the living room, looking at Noah's drawing placed on the glass coffee table. That crumpled sheet of paper contrasted dramatically with the impeccable, expensive decor of his home. He picked up the phone and dialed his private lawyer. "Dr. Harrison, it's Brandon Mitchell. I need an urgent consultation tomorrow morning." "Of course, Brandon. Any problems with the company contracts?" "No. It's a personal matter, very personal." The next morning, Brandon was at the law office before 8 o'clock. Dr. Harrison, a 60-year-old man who had handled the Mitchell family's legal interests for over a decade, greeted him with curiosity. "What can I do for you, Brandon?" "I found out yesterday that I have 2 children." Dr. Harrison adjusted his glasses, surprised. "What do you mean you found out?" Brandon told the whole story, from his arrival at Jennifer's house to the afternoon he had spent playing with the twins. The lawyer took notes as he listened. "I see. And what exactly is your question?" I want to know what my rights are as the biological father. First, a paternity test would be necessary to legally confirm what seems obvious from the physical resemblance. And then, you would have the right to shared custody, visitation rights, participation in important decisions about the children's education and health. You would also have child support obligations proportional to your income. And if the mother refuses to cooperate, paternity can be established through the courts. The best interests of the child always prevail. Brandon ran his hand through his hair, thoughtful. There's another issue. They were registered under another man's name. How does that work? If biological paternity is proven, it's possible to request a change to the birth certificate, but that would invalidate the other man's socio-affective paternity. What if I don't want to remove his name? What if I just want to be present in their lives? Dr. Harrison looked at him in surprise. It was rare to find a client who didn't want every possible legal right. It's possible, but legally complicated. The ideal would be a friendly agreement between the parties, and if Jennifer, the mother, refuses any kind of agreement, then we would have to go the legal route. But that would be draining for everyone involved, especially for the children. Brandon left the office even more confused than when he had entered. Technically, he had rights over his children, but exercising them could destroy the life Jennifer had built for them. For the rest of the week, he couldn't concentrate on work. His secretary, Mrs. Dorothy, an efficient lady who had worked with him for over 5 years, noticed the change in his behavior. "Mr. Brandon, are you all right? You haven't seemed yourself since Monday." "It's complicated, Mrs. Dorothy. Do you want to talk?" Sometimes it helps to talk to someone outside the situation. Brandon hesitated. Mrs. Dorothy had been like a second mother to him since he started working at the office. She knew all his moods and quirks. "If I told you I found out I have children, what would you do in my place, Mrs.?" Dorothy stopped organizing the documents and sat in the chair in front of his desk. "This is serious, isn't it?" "Very serious. Can I ask a question? These children, are they well cared for?" "Physically, yes. The mother loves them very much, that's obvious, but they are going through financial difficulties." "And emotionally? How are they?" Brandon thought of the boys' sad faces when they talked about David's departure. Confused, hurt. They lost the only father they knew a few months ago. "I understand, and you? How do you feel about them?" It was a simple question, but the answer was complex. I felt connected to them immediately. I don't know if it's paternal instinct or just the physical resemblance, but it was as if a missing part of me had been found. Mrs. Dorothy nodded slowly. "May I give some advice from someone who raised 4 children?" "Please. Children don't want a weekend dad. Children want a present, constant father who is part of their routine. If you're not prepared to be that kind of father, it's better to leave things as they are. And if I am prepared, then you're going to have to make some difficult decisions about your priorities." The conversation with Mrs. Dorothy echoed in Brandon's mind for the rest of the week. On Saturday, he woke up with the firm determination to resolve the situation. He drove to Jennifer's house again, this time with shopping bags on the back seat. He had stopped by the pharmacy, the market, and a toy store. When he arrived, he found Jennifer hanging clothes on the makeshift clothesline in the backyard. She saw him arrive and sighed heavily. "I thought you weren't coming back." "I told the boys I would try to come back. They've asked about you every day this week." "And you, did you think about me?" Jennifer looked at him with an expression he couldn't decipher. "I thought about how you played with them, how they laughed. It had been a long time since I'd seen the 2 of them so happy." "Where are they?" "Inside. Ethan has had a bit of a fever since yesterday." Brandon felt an immediate concern that surprised him. "Is it serious?" "No, probably just a cold, but I don't have the money to take him to the doctor unless it's really necessary." "Jennifer, that's ridiculous. If he's sick, he needs to see a doctor. And how am I going to pay?" "A private appointment costs $200. I make $300 a month cleaning 3 different houses." The reality of Jennifer's financial situation hit Brandon with full force. He spent more than $200 on a single meal at expensive restaurants. "I'll pay for the appointment." "I won't accept your charity. It's not charity, it's responsibility. Responsibility? Funny you should mention that now. Before the discussion could escalate, Noah appeared at the front door. "Brandon, you came back!" He ran to hug him. "Of course I came back. How's Ethan?" "He's in bed with a headache. Mum made lemon tea, but he doesn't want to drink it." Brandon followed Noah into the house. It was the first time he had entered the humble home where his children lived. The contrast with his mansion was shocking, but there was something cozy about that small, clean space. Ethan was lying in a single bed he shared with his brother, covers pulled up to his neck. "Hi, Brandon," he said in a weak voice, but smiling. "Hi, champ. I heard you're not feeling well." "It's just a headache, and I feel a little hot." Brandon put his hand on the boy's forehead and felt the elevated temperature. "Jennifer, he has a high fever. He needs to see a doctor now." "I told you it's just a cold." "And what if it's not? What if it's something more serious?" The genuine worry in Brandon's voice made Jennifer hesitate. "Okay, but I'll pay for the appointment as soon as I get the money." "Let's not argue about that now. Let's take him to the hospital." During the trip to the emergency room, Ethan fell asleep in the back seat with Noah holding his hand. Jennifer sat tense in the passenger seat, clearly uncomfortable having to accept Brandon's help. "Thank you," she said softly as they parked. "No need to thank me. He's my son too." It was the first time he had said those words out loud, and the impact was immediate. Jennifer looked at him in surprise, and Brandon realized he had crossed a line from which he couldn't return. At the hospital, Ethan was examined by a pediatrician who diagnosed a throat infection, nothing serious, but requiring antibiotics. While they waited for the prescription, Brandon filled out the hospital forms. "Name of the guardian?" the nurse asked. "Brandon Mitchell." "What is your relationship to the patient?" Brandon hesitated for a moment before answering, "I'm his father." Jennifer looked at him in shock but said nothing. Noah, who was listening to the conversation, tilted his head, confused. "Brandon is our dad?" he asked innocently. The silence in the waiting room was deafening. Jennifer paled, and Brandon realized he had put them both in an impossible situation. "Noah, let's talk about this later, okay?" Jennifer said quickly. "But I want to know now. Brandon, are you our real dad?" The direct question from a 5-year-old demanded an equally direct answer. Brandon looked at Jennifer, who shook her head in panic. "It's complicated, Noah. Let's wait for Ethan to get better first, okay?" "All right." Noah seemed to accept the answer for now, but Brandon knew the issue wasn't resolved. When they left the hospital, Ethan was already feeling better thanks to the painkiller he had taken. On the way back home, he became more talkative. "Brandon, are you married?" he asked suddenly. "Yes, I am married. Is your wife as pretty as Mommy?" Brandon looked in the rearview mirror at Jennifer, who had blushed at the comment. "She's different from Mommy," he replied diplomatically. "Does she like kids?" Noah joined the conversation. Actually, we've never really talked much about that." It was true. Victoria had always made it clear that career came first, and children weren't part of her immediate plans. Or maybe they never would be. "Would she like us?" Ethan asked hopefully. The question touched on a problem Brandon hadn't yet considered. How to explain to Victoria about the twins' existence? How would she react upon discovering her husband had 2 children he didn't know about? "Ethan, don't ask personal questions," Jennifer intervened, sensing Brandon's discomfort. "It's okay," Brandon said. "It's a valid question. I don't know how she would react to you. Honestly, I haven't told her about our situation yet." "Why not?" Noah asked with that childish frankness. "Because it's complicated, sweetheart," Jennifer answered for him. "Adults sometimes take a while to sort things out." When they arrived at the house, Brandon helped get Ethan into bed and said goodbye to both boys. Jennifer walked him to the car. "Thank you for today, for taking him to the doctor, paying for the visit. Jennifer, we need to talk seriously." "I know, but not today. The boys have been through enough emotion already." "When then?" "Tomorrow night, after they're asleep." "All right. I'll come back at 8. As he drove home, Brandon reflected on the day's events. For the second time, He had felt genuinely needed and useful in his children's lives, but it was also clear the situation couldn't continue in this indefinite state. At home, Victoria had returned from her trip and was unpacking her suitcase in the bedroom. "How was New York?" he asked, kissing her on the cheek. "Productive. I managed to close the deal with the import company. And you, how was your week?" "Quiet. Routine work." The lie came out naturally, but left a bitter taste in his mouth. Victoria was too smart not to notice changes in his behavior, but she was too busy with her own projects to investigate. "By the way," she said while taking off her shoes, "my mother called. She wants to know when we're going to give her a grandchild." The comment hit Brandon like a punch. Ironically, his mother-in-law already had 2 grandchildren, she just didn't know it. "What did you say?" "The same as always. That it's not the right time. My career is taking off, and children would get in the way of everything right now." The words echoed painfully familiar. It was exactly what he had said to Jennifer years ago. What if it were the right time? How would you feel about having children? Victoria stopped unpacking and looked at him in surprise. "Where did that question come from? You've never shown interest in having children." "Just curiosity. People change their minds." "Well, I haven't changed, at least not for the next 5 years. I have too many professional goals to achieve first." Brandon nodded and left the room, feeling the weight of the irony. His current wife had the same attitude he once had, and now he was on the other side of the situation. That night, he could barely sleep. His mind alternated between images of Ethan and Noah smiling at him, and the reality that staying in contact with them would mean completely destabilizing his current life. On Sunday night, he returned to Jennifer's house promptly at 8 o'clock. She had put the boys to bed early and was waiting for him on the small wooden porch. "How is Ethan?" he asked, sitting in the plastic chair she had provided. "Much better. The antibiotic is working. Thank you again." "Stop thanking me, Jennifer. It's strange." They sat in silence for a few minutes, listening to the night sounds of the neighborhood. It was a stark contrast to the sterile silence of his gated community. "Brandon, what exactly do you want?" "I want to be a father to my children." "And what does that mean in practice?" "It means being present in their lives, helping financially, participating in important decisions, being someone they can trust." "And your wife? How does she fit into all this?" Brandon sighed heavily. "I don't know yet. I haven't told her about the boys." "Why not?" "Because I know what her reaction will be. Victoria doesn't want children, and especially not children that aren't hers." "So, you're going to keep the boys a secret forever?" "No, I can't do that. But I need time to figure out the best way to handle the situation." Jennifer stood up and walked to the porch railing, looking out at the dark street. "You know what's most ironic about this whole story? I always dreamed that one day you would show up and want to know your children, but now that it's happening, I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid that you'll disappoint them. Afraid that you'll promise things you can't deliver. Afraid that one day you'll just disappear again." "I won't disappear." "How can you be sure? Your life is completely different from ours. You have responsibilities, commitments, a wife who doesn't want children. What happens when you have to choose between us and your current life?" It was a question Brandon didn't know how to answer, because he himself didn't know what his choice would be. "Jennifer, I made a lot of mistakes in the past. I was selfish and immature. But meeting the boys changed something in me. I can't just pretend they don't exist. And I can't just pretend you're trustworthy after 7 years of abandonment. So, what do you suggest?" "I suggest you prove you've changed. Prove you're serious about being a father." "How?" "By starting slow. Regular visits, but without creating unnecessary expectations for the boys. No grand promises or expensive gifts that I can't give. And most importantly, no lies." "What about them knowing I'm their father?" Jennifer hesitated for a long moment. "Let's see how things develop. If you really commit, if you show you're here to stay, then maybe we can talk to them about the truth." "How long do you think that will take?" "I don't know. Maybe months, maybe years. It depends on you." Brandon nodded, understanding it was the only chance she was willing to give him. "There's one more thing," Jennifer added. If you're serious about helping financially, I don't want handouts. I want an opportunity to earn my own money. How so? I need a real job, something better than cleaning. I know you have a big company. You must have some opening for someone like me. Jennifer, you have a high school diploma, right? Yes. And I did 2 years of a technical course in administration before I married you. Brandon had forgotten that. Before the marriage, Jennifer had been a dedicated student with dreams of her own. Why did you stop the course? Because you said a wife should dedicate herself to the home, and that my education wasn't a priority. Another stab of guilt. Brandon really had been the kind of man who discouraged his wife's independence. I can look at the job openings at the company. I don't want special treatment, I want a fair chance. Understood. When Brandon left Jennifer's house that night, he felt as if he had made a pact that would change his life forever. He didn't yet know how he would reconcile his new reality with his current life, but he knew he had to try. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. On Monday morning, Brandon arrived at the office with a clear purpose. He asked Mrs. Dorothy to bring all the information about open positions at the company. We have one open position in the customer service department, she informed him. It requires a high school diploma and basic computer experience. Perfect. Schedule an interview. For when? This week. And Mrs. Dorothy, I want the interview to be conducted by HR normally. No influence from me. The secretary looked at him curiously but asked no questions. In the following days, Brandon established a routine of visits to Jennifer's house. 3 times a week, he spent about 2 hours playing with the boys, helping with homework, and simply talking. Ethan and Noah began eagerly awaiting his visits. They prepared drawings, told stories from school, and asked 1,000 questions about Brandon's life. Brandon, were you like us when you were a kid? Noah asked one Tuesday afternoon as they assembled a puzzle on the living room floor. What do you mean, like you? Blonde, with green eyes, curious about everything? Brandon smiled. With each passing day, he discovered more similarities between himself and the twins. Yes, I was. My mother always said I asked a lot of questions just like you. Where is your mother now? Ethan asked. She passed away when I was 15. Brandon replied simply. Passed away to where? To heaven, Ethan. She got sick and had to leave. And your father? My father isn't here anymore either. Noah stopped fitting the puzzle pieces and looked seriously at Brandon. So you don't have a family? The question was so innocent, yet so profound. Technically, Brandon had Victoria, had distant relatives, but he had never felt part of a real family until he met the twins. Now I have you, he said softly. And we have you, Ethan exclaimed, jumping into his lap. That's right. Noah joined in the group hug. Jennifer, who was organizing the kitchen, watched the scene with an involuntary smile. It was impossible to deny the genuine connection that had developed between Brandon and the boys. That Thursday, Jennifer was called for the interview at Brandon's company. She arrived nervous, wearing her best clothes, a simple button-down blouse and a skirt she had bought years ago. The interview was conducted by Sarah Thompson, the human resources manager, who had no idea of the connection between the applicant and her boss. I see here you've been a few years without formal work experience, Sarah commented, analyzing the resume. That's true. I spent a few years dedicated exclusively to raising my children. And what motivates you to return to the job market now? I need to provide better financial stability for my family, and I feel I have a lot to contribute. I've always been organized, and I'm good at dealing with people. Why did you choose our company? Jennifer hesitated. She couldn't mention Brandon, but she needed to give a convincing answer. I researched the company's reputation. I heard you value dedicated employees and offer growth opportunities. The interview lasted 40 minutes. Sarah asked questions about hypothetical customer service situations, tested basic computer knowledge, and analyzed Jennifer's communication skills. Jennifer, I'll be frank with you. You don't have recent formal experience, but you show intelligence, education, and a willingness to learn. We'll give you a chance. Really? Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. Really? But it will be a 90-day probationary period. You'll have to prove you can do the job. I will. I guarantee it will work out. Jennifer left the company floating on air. It was the first time in years she felt truly capable and valued as a person, not just as a mother. That night, she told the boys the news with enthusiasm. "Mommy got a new job," she announced during dinner. "That's awesome," Ethan celebrated. "Now you're going to work in an office like Brandon's." "Similar, yes." "Is Mommy going to be rich?" Noah asked hopefully. "Not rich, sweetheart, but we'll have a slightly better life." When Brandon arrived for his usual visit, he found the family in a celebratory mood. Jennifer had made a simple cake with the ingredients she had at home, and the boys were excitedly talking about their mother's new job. "Congratulations," Brandon said sincerely. "I'm sure you'll do very well." "Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. You got it because you deserve it. The company is gaining a valuable employee." "Brandon, is Mommy going to work at your company?" Ethan asked, connecting the dots. "Yes, she is. So you'll see each other every day. That's so cool." The innocent observation created a moment of tension. Brandon and Jennifer were still navigating the boundaries of their new relationship, and working in the same place would add an extra layer of complexity. "We'll see how it goes," Jennifer said diplomatically. On Jennifer's first day of work, Brandon tried to keep his distance. He didn't want colleagues speculating about why he had taken an interest in hiring her, but it was impossible not to notice how she adapted to the environment. Jennifer was naturally friendly, learned quickly, and showed genuine dedication. Within a week, she was already well liked by her department colleagues. "This new Jennifer is great," Sarah commented in a management meeting. "Clients are praising her customer service." "That's good," Brandon replied, trying to sound neutral. "She has an interesting story, single mother of twins, returning to the workforce after years. She's the type of employee who values the opportunity." If she only knew the full story, Brandon thought. After 2 weeks of work, Jennifer began to gain confidence. She arrived at work well-dressed, greeted Brandon professionally when they met in the hallways, and was clearly flourishing in the corporate environment. "What's it like working at the same company as Brandon?" Noah asked during one of his visits. "Interesting," Jennifer replied, choosing her words carefully. "He's a fair boss." "You work for him?" Ethan got excited. "So he's your boss?" "More or less. He owns the company, so technically yes." "Wow, Brandon owns a whole company." Noah was impressed. "Are you rich, Brandon?" "Noah, we don't ask that." Jennifer gently scolded him. "It's okay," Brandon said. "Yes, Noah, I have money. But you know what's more important than money?" "What?" "People you love, and you are far more valuable than any money I have." It was a simple answer, but loaded with meaning. Jennifer realized Brandon was genuinely changing his perspective on what was important in life. However, keeping the secret about the children was becoming increasingly difficult for Brandon. At home, Victoria began to question his frequent absences. "You've been out a lot lately," she commented during a dinner. "Is everything okay with the company?" "Everything's great. I've just been taking care of some personal matters." "What kind of personal issues?" Brandon hesitated. Technically, his answer wouldn't be a lie. "Family matters." "Family? What family? You don't have any close relatives." "It's complicated, Victoria. I'd rather not go into details right now." The evasive answer visibly irritated Victoria. "Brandon, we're married. There shouldn't be secrets between us." "It's not a secret. It's just something I need to sort out first before discussing it." "That doesn't make sense. If it's taking up so much of your time, it must be important. Why can't you tell me?" "Because it could change our lives completely, and I don't know yet how you'll react." The conversation ended in an argument, with Victoria storming off angrily to the bedroom. It was the first serious fight they'd had in months. That night, Brandon lay awake thinking about how the situation was becoming unsustainable. He couldn't keep lying to Victoria indefinitely, but he also didn't know how to tell the truth without destroying his marriage. At the company, things got complicated when Victoria decided to pay a surprise visit to the office. It was something she did occasionally, but this time she intended to observe her husband's behavior more closely. She arrived during lunch hour and found Brandon talking with Jennifer near the water cooler. It was a seemingly casual conversation, but there was an intimacy in their body language that caught her attention. "Hi, honey," she approached, kissing Brandon on the cheek. "Who's your friend?" "This is Jennifer, our new customer service employee," Brandon introduced formally. "Jennifer, this is my wife, Victoria." "Nice to meet you." Jennifer extended her hand politely. "The pleasure is mine." Victoria shook her hand, studying her face. "Have you worked here long?" "Only 3 weeks." "And are you liking it?" "Very much. It's an excellent company to work for." Victoria smiled, but Brandon noticed it was her social smile, not a genuine one. "That's good. I'm always happy when my husband hires competent people." During the rest of the conversation, Brandon noticed how Victoria observed every interaction between him and Jennifer. His wife was smart and had a sharp instinct for detecting when something was off. "She's pretty," Victoria commented after Jennifer walked away. "Who?" "Your new employee, Jennifer." "I hadn't noticed," Brandon lied. "Of course you had. And from the way you two were talking, it seemed more than a professional relationship." "Don't be ridiculous, Victoria. It was just a work conversation." "If you say so." But the seed of suspicion had been planted. In the following days, Victoria made more spontaneous visits to the office, always observing the interactions between Brandon and Jennifer. The situation reached a breaking point on a Friday afternoon when Victoria appeared at the exact moment Brandon and Jennifer were discussing Ethan, who had had an asthma attack at school. "The doctor said it's important to avoid dusty environments," Jennifer was saying when she noticed Victoria's presence. "Doctor?" Victoria approached. "Some family health issue, Jennifer?" "My son had an asthma attack, nothing serious," Jennifer replied, clearly uncomfortable. "What a shame. And his father, can't he help with these medical issues?" The situation is complicated." "How so complicated?" Brandon intervened before Jennifer had to answer. "Victoria, that's none of our business. Jennifer was just informing me that she might need to leave early today." "Of course. Family matters come first," Victoria said in a tone that didn't sound sincere. That night, the tension at home was palpable. Victoria prepared dinner in silence and only spoke during the meal to make cutting remarks about employees who mix personal problems with work. "Brandon, can I ask a direct question?" she finally said. "Of course." "Are you having an affair with this Jennifer?" The question hit Brandon like a bolt of lightning. Not because it was true, but because it revealed just how complicated the situation had become. "No, I am not having an affair with her." "But there is something between you." "There is, but it's not what you're thinking." "Then explain to me what it is." Brandon took a deep breath. The moment of truth had come. "Jennifer is my ex-wife, and she is the mother of my children." The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria stopped chewing and looked at him as if he had just confessed to murder. "Your children," she repeated slowly. "Twins. 2 5-year-old boys." "Wait. You were married before and never told me? You have children and never told me?" "I knew about the previous marriage, but I only found out about the children a month ago." "How do you find out about children after 5 years?" Brandon told the whole story, from his initial visit to Jennifer's house to the present moment. Victoria listened in silence, her expression shifting from shock to anger, and then to something he couldn't identify. "And you've been visiting these children regularly?" "Yes. That's the reason for the frequent absences." "Yes. And you hired her to work at your company?" "For our company. And she got the job on her own merit." "Brandon, do you realize what you've done? You brought your ex-wife and your children into our lives without consulting me." "I didn't bring them into our lives. I'm trying to be a responsible father." "A responsible father?" She laughed bitterly. "You're playing family with another woman and her children." "It's not like that." "It's not? Then explain to me how it is." "It's about being present in my children's lives. It's about taking on responsibilities I should have taken on years ago." "And me? Where do I fit into all of this?" It was the question Brandon had avoided thinking about. The truth was, he didn't know where Victoria fit into the new reality he was building. You are my wife. That doesn't change. But everything else changes, right? Now you have children, an ex-wife, family responsibilities. What's left for our marriage? Why does something have to be left? Why can't it all be together? Because I never wanted children, Brandon. I made that very clear from the start. And I definitely never wanted another woman's children. But they exist. I can't pretend they don't. You pretended for 5 years. Because I didn't know they existed. The argument escalated, with both raising their voices and saying things they knew would hurt the other. In the end, Victoria left the house, saying she needed time to think. Brandon was left alone in the empty mansion, realizing his carefully built life was crumbling. For the first time, he questioned whether he had made the right decisions. The next morning, he woke up to a call from Jennifer. "Brandon, sorry to call so early, but Ethan isn't feeling well. The fever is back and he's complaining of ear pain. I'm on my way there now." "You don't have to." "Of course I do. I'm his father." When Brandon arrived at Jennifer's house, he found Ethan crying in pain and Noah trying to comfort him. Jennifer was visibly worried. "I already tried giving him the medicine the doctor prescribed last time, but it's not working," she explained. "Let's take him to the hospital again." "But it's Saturday. The emergency room will be packed." "Then we'll go to a private clinic, no matter the cost." During the drive, Ethan cried the whole time and Noah held his hand, trying to distract him with stories. Brandon drove as fast as he safely could, feeling an anguish he had never experienced before. At the clinic, Ethan was diagnosed with an ear infection that had spread. The pediatrician recommended hospitalization for intravenous antibiotic treatment. "How long will he be hospitalized?" Brandon asked. "At least 3 days, maybe more, depending on his response to treatment." "And is it serious?" "Not if we treat it properly now. But ear infections can be serious if neglected." While Ethan was being prepared for admission, Noah started to cry. "I want to stay with Ethan. I don't want him to be alone." "Noah, you can't sleep at the hospital," Jennifer explained gently. "But we'll visit him every day." "I can stay," Brandon offered. "The hospital allows one companion." "Brandon, you don't have to." "I want to stay. He's my son." It was the first time Brandon had said those words in front of Noah, who stopped crying and looked at him curiously. "Is Brandon Ethan's father?" he asked innocently. Jennifer and Brandon exchanged glances. The moment of revelation had arrived sooner than they expected. "Noah," Jennifer knelt down to his level, "we need to talk about something important." "About what?" "About who Brandon is to you and to Ethan. He's our friend." "He's more than a friend. Brandon is your father, the daddy who helped bring you into the world." Noah processed the information for a long moment, looking from Jennifer to Brandon. "Like how Daddy David was our heart father?" he finally asked. "No, sweetheart, Brandon is your biological father. You and Ethan were born from Mommy's tummy, but also from Brandon." "Is that why we look like him?" "Exactly." Noah turned to Brandon, studying his face seriously. "You're my real father?" "Yes, I am, Noah." "And why didn't you live with us?" It was an impossible question to answer for a 5-year-old. Brandon knelt down to be at his height. "Because I was a very confused father. I didn't know you existed, and when I found out, I didn't know how to be a proper father. But I'm learning now." "And are you going to live with us now?" "It's complicated, Noah, but I will be present in your lives always, I promise." "And will you take care of Ethan at the hospital?" "I will." Noah hugged Brandon for the first time as a son hugs a father. "Okay, now you are my father and Ethan's." The simplicity with which the child accepted the situation contrasted brutally with the complexity the adults had created around it. During the 3 days Ethan was hospitalized, Brandon practically lived at the hospital. He slept in the chair next to the bed, helped with medications, talked with doctors and nurses, and for the first time in his life, put another person's needs completely above his own. Jennifer alternated between work and the hospital, bringing Noah to visit his brother every day after school. It was the first time they functioned as a family unit, and despite the difficult circumstances, there was something comforting about it. "How are you feeling, champ?" Brandon asked Ethan on the second night. Better. My ear doesn't hurt as much anymore. That's good. Soon you'll be able to go back home. Brandon? Yes? Mommy said you're my real father. It's true. How do you feel about that? Good. I always wanted to have a father, and you're nice to me. I always wanted to have children too, and you are the best children anyone could want. Are you going to leave when I get out of the hospital? The question broke Brandon's heart. I'm not leaving, Ethan. I might not live in the same house as you, but I will always be your father. Why can't you live with us? Because it's complicated. But that doesn't mean I love you any less. Okay. I just don't want you to disappear like Daddy David disappeared. I will never disappear. I promise. When Ethan was discharged from the hospital, the family dynamic had completely changed. The boys now knew who Brandon really was, and that brought both relief and new complications. Can I call you Dad? Noah asked during the first visit after the discharge. If you want. And if I want to keep calling you Brandon? You can do that too. The name isn't the most important thing. What matters is that we are family. Ethan, what are you going to call him? Noah asked his brother. I think I'll call him Dad. I like the sound of it. The difference in the twins' reactions reflected their distinct personalities. Ethan, more emotional and in need of a father figure, immediately embraced the idea. Noah, more cautious, was testing the waters. During this period, Brandon had little news from Victoria. She had temporarily moved to her mother's house and communicated only through short, formal messages. I need more time to process all of this. Don't contact me for now. The message came on a Tuesday, exactly 1 week after his revelation. Brandon read it while helping Noah with his math homework. Dad, are you sad? Noah noticed the change in his expression. A little, son. Because of your wife? How do you know about my wife? Mum told me. She said you're married to another woman. Brandon looked at Jennifer, who was preparing dinner in the kitchen and had clearly overheard the conversation. It's true. I am married. And she doesn't like kids? She hasn't met you yet. Maybe if she meets us, she'll like us, Noah suggested with childish optimism. Maybe. But Brandon knew the situation was far more complex than Noah could understand. 2 weeks later, Brandon received an unexpected call from his mother-in-law. Brandon, it's Margaret. We need to talk. Mrs. Margaret, how are you? Confused. Victoria told me about your family situation. I understand. I don't think you do. Can I come to your office tomorrow? The meeting with his mother-in-law was one of the most difficult conversations of Brandon's life. Margaret was an influential woman in Charlotte society, accustomed to controlling situations and people. Do you realize the scandal this could cause? She said without preamble. A respected businessman discovering he has illegitimate children with a poor ex-wife? First, they are not illegitimate. They are my children. Second, their mother's financial situation is not relevant. Of course it's relevant. You brought that woman to work at your company. People will talk. Let them talk. Brandon, be sensible. You have a reputation to protect, a marriage to save. You can't just embrace this situation. This situation has a name: fatherhood. Responsible fatherhood would be making a discreet financial arrangement and keeping your distance. And abandon my children again. It's not abandonment, it's being practical. Mrs. Margaret, with all due respect, you don't understand. Those boys have changed my life. I can't pretend they don't exist. But you would destroy your marriage and your reputation because of them. If I have to, yes. The answer clearly shocked Margaret, who had always seen Brandon as pragmatic and calculating. And Victoria, what does she mean to you? She means a lot. But I can't choose between my wife and my children. I have to find a way to make it all work. And if it's not possible? Brandon didn't answer, because the question touched on his greatest fears. That night, he decided to try a different approach. He called Victoria. Hello? Her voice sounded cold and distant. Victoria, can we talk? About what? About us. About our marriage. About how to resolve this situation. Brandon, You made your decision when you chose to get involved with those children. I didn't make a decision. I just found out I have children and decided to be responsible for them. And me? Where do I fit into this? You fit by my side, as always. By the side of a man who has children with another woman, who spends more time with them than with me. Victoria, they are children, they need attention. And I don't need my husband. Of course you do, and I'm here. No, you're not. Physically you might be, but emotionally you're with them. The accusation hurt because it held a grain of truth. Brandon really did feel more connected to Ethan and Noah than he had felt with anyone in years. What do you want from me, Victoria? I want you to choose. Either your previous family or our family. I can't choose. And I shouldn't have to choose. Then you've already chosen. The call ended and Brandon realized his marriage was truly at risk. The next day he arrived early at the company and found Jennifer already working. She had become an exemplary employee, always punctual and dedicated. Good morning, he greeted formally. Good morning, Brandon. How are the boys? Good. Ethan is excited because you promised to take them to the park on Sunday. And Noah? Noah asked a question yesterday that left me speechless. What question? He wants to know if you're going to divorce your wife to marry me again. The question was as direct as it was typical of a child, but it touched the very heart of the confusion that had become Brandon's life. What did you answer? That's not how it works, that adults can be family without being married. And did he accept that? For now. But children ask a lot of questions, Brandon, and we don't always have easy answers. Jennifer, have you ever thought about us? About what it would be like if we tried again? The question slipped out before he could filter it. Jennifer stopped typing and looked at him in surprise. Brandon, no. Why not? We work well together now. The boys want us together. The boys want stability, they want a family. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to be together as a couple. But it would be simpler. Simpler for whom? For you, who's having marriage problems, or for the boys who are trying to understand a complex family situation? For all of us. Brandon, we divorced for valid reasons. You've changed a lot, I acknowledge that, but that doesn't mean it would be a good idea for us to try a romantic relationship again. Why not? Because I don't trust you in that way yet. Because you're still married to someone else. And mainly because I don't want the boys to see us trying and failing again. The rejection was painful, but Brandon understood Jennifer's logic. You're right. It was a stupid idea. It wasn't stupid, it was complicated, and our situation is already complicated enough. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. That weekend, Brandon took the twins to the park as he had promised. It was the first time he had gone out alone with them, without Jennifer around, and he was nervous about how it would go. Dad, can I go on the big slide? Ethan asked as soon as they arrived. Of course, but be careful. And can I try the monkey bars? Noah pointed to the gymnastics equipment. Can you reach them? If you help me. What followed were 2 hours of pure fun. Brandon pushed the boys on the swings, helped them across the monkey bars, taught them tricks on the slide, and even joined them in an impromptu soccer match with other kids at the park. Dad, you're fun, Ethan commented as they shared an ice cream. You guys are fun too. Can we do this every week? Noah asked hopefully. If you want to and Mommy allows it, yes. Mommy always allows it. She likes it when you're with us. How do you know? Because she gets happier, and she smiles more. Noah's observation made Brandon reflect on how his presence affected not just the boys, but also Jennifer. On the way back home, Ethan fell asleep in the back seat. Noah stayed awake, watching the scenery through the window. Dad? Yes? Why don't you and Mom live together? Because it's complicated, Noah. Adults sometimes can't live in the same house, even when they care for each other. But do you care for each other? The question was simple, but the answer was complex. We respect each other and want the best for one another. And most importantly, we want the best for you two. Does that mean you care for each other? It means we're family, no matter where each of us lives. Noah seemed to accept the answer, at least for now. When they arrived home, Brandon carried the sleeping Ethan to his room. Jennifer was cooking and greeted him with a genuine smile. "How was the outing?" "Great. They're great kids." "They really are. Thank you for taking them. It had been a while since I saw them both so excited." "Jennifer, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you happy with this new life we're building?" "I'm happier than I was 2 months ago. I have a job I like, financial stability, and the boys have a present father. I can't complain." "And about us? How do you feel about our dynamic?" "I think we're finding a balance. It's not traditional, but it works." "And if I got divorced, would that change anything?" Jennifer stopped stirring the pot and turned to him. "Brandon, don't make decisions about your marriage because of us. That wouldn't be fair to anyone. It wouldn't be because of you. It would be because I realized I'm not happy with Victoria." "Are you sure about that? Or are you confused because of this whole new situation?" "I don't know anymore. I just know that when I'm here with you all, I feel like I'm in the right place. And when you're with her, I feel like I'm playing a part. Like I'm the person she wants me to be, not who I really am." "Brandon, these are issues you need to resolve independently of us. I can't and I won't influence your marital decisions." "I know. I just wanted your perspective." "My perspective is that you need time to think. And Victoria does too. Decisions made in the heat of emotion are rarely the best ones." The following Monday, Brandon got a surprise when he arrived at the office. Victoria was waiting in the reception area, dressed formally as if for a business meeting. "Can we talk?" she asked curtly. "Of course, let's go to my office." Once alone, Victoria got straight to the point. "I spoke with my lawyer." "About what?" "About divorce." The words hit Brandon like a punch, even though he knew this moment would eventually come. "Victoria." "No, let me speak. I've thought a lot about our situation over the last few weeks, and I've come to the conclusion that I can't compete with children. It's not a competition." "Of course it is. You can say it's not. You can try to convince yourself it's not, but it is. Every time they need you, every time they have a problem, every time they want your attention, I'll come second." "Not necessarily." "Brandon, be honest with me and with yourself. If that child were dying in the hospital and I needed you for something important at the same time, who would you choose?" He couldn't answer immediately, and that was answer enough. "Exactly," she continued, "and I'm not saying you're wrong. That's probably how it should be. But it's not the kind of marriage I want. What if we tried to include the boys in our life? If you got to know them?" "I don't want to know them, Brandon. Not because they're bad kids, but because I couldn't love them the way they deserve to be loved. And that wouldn't be fair to them or to me." It was an honest and painful admission. "And what do you want now?" "I want an amicable divorce, no fights, no unnecessary financial disputes. You keep the company, I'll keep my personal investments. We split the other assets fairly." "And the house?" "You can keep it, or sell it. It doesn't matter to me." "Victoria, are you sure this is what you want?" "I am. In fact, it's been one of the easiest decisions I've ever made." "Why?" "Because over the last few weeks, watching you with those kids, I realized I've never seen you so genuinely happy, and I realized I've never felt genuinely needed in your life." "That's not true." "Yes, it is. We worked well together professionally, socially, but emotionally. There was never a deep connection. We got married because it made sense on paper, not because we were each other's great love." Victoria's brutal honesty was hard to hear, but she was right. "And now? Now you have a chance to build something real with your family, and I have a chance to find someone who loves me the way I deserve to be loved." "Do you have someone in mind already?" "No, but I know there's someone out there who will make me feel special, not optional." The conversation continued for another hour, defining the practical details of the divorce. In the end, they said goodbye with a hug that felt more like the end of a business partnership than the end of a marriage. That night, Brandon went to Jennifer's house as usual, but arrived more downcast than usual. "Did something happen?" she asked as soon as she opened the door. "Victoria wants a divorce." "Oh, how do you feel about that?" "Relieved. Guilty for feeling relieved. Confused. That's natural. Even when divorce is the right decision, it's still hard. How did you handle it when we got divorced? I cried a lot. Then I got angry. Then I accepted it. And in the end, I realized it had been liberating. Liberating how? It forced me to discover who I was without you, to build my own identity. And did you like who you discovered you were? I did. I became stronger, more independent, more confident in my own opinions. Dad. Noah ran to hug him as soon as he noticed his presence. Mom said you weren't going to make it today. Why wouldn't I come? I don't know. She just said you had important things to sort out. Brandon looked at Jennifer curiously. How did you know I had important things to sort out? Woman's intuition, she smiled. And because you've been different since last week. Different how? More tense. Like you were waiting for something bad to happen. And now that it has, now you can focus on what really matters. They had dinner together for the first time as a family, not a traditional family, but a family nonetheless. Ethan talked about a school project. Noah showed a new drawing he had made. Jennifer talked about a difficult client at work. And Brandon simply watched, feeling more at home than he had in years. Dad, can you sleep here tonight? Ethan asked, as he was being tucked into bed. No, son. I have my own house. But you're sad. When I'm sad, I sleep with Mom. It's different when you're an adult, Ethan. Why is it different? Because it's complicated. Is everything complicated when you're an adult? Noah asked philosophically. It seems that way, Brandon laughed. But some things get simpler too. Like what? Like knowing that I love you. That's not complicated at all. When Brandon left the house that night, Jennifer walked him to his car. How do you really feel about the divorce, Sam? She asked. Honestly, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, which scares me. Why does that scare you? Because it means I didn't truly love Victoria, that I wasted 4 years of my life in a relationship that wasn't real. Or it means you were different and incompatible people, and now you can move on. And you? How do you feel about my situation changing? Nervous, she admitted, because I don't know what this means for us. For us? For our dynamic? For the boys? For this routine we've built? Why would anything change? Because now you'll be single, free to make decisions without having to consider another person. And that's bad. It's not bad or good. It's different. And changes always create anxiety. Jennifer, I'm not going to disappear from the boys' lives. If that's what you're afraid of, you can relax. It's not just that. What else? I'm afraid you'll think that now that you're getting divorced, we should automatically try again. And why would that be bad? Because that's not how it works. We're not puzzle pieces that automatically fit together because we have kids together. I know. But we're not strangers either. No, we're not. But we're also not the same people we were 7 years ago. What if we're better people now? Brandon, let's take it slow, okay? One step at a time. In the following months, Brandon's life underwent a complete transformation. The divorce went smoothly, exactly as Victoria had promised. He sold the mansion and bought a smaller but more welcoming house in a neighborhood midway between the center and the outskirts where Jennifer lived. The boys got a room in the new house, decorated especially for them. Every weekend they slept there, and Brandon learned firsthand what it meant to be a full-time father. Dad, why doesn't your new house have a pool? Ethan asked on their first weekend there. Because I preferred to have a backyard where you guys can play ball. Good choice, Noah approved. Pools are just for show-off rich people. Noah, where did you learn that? Brandon was shocked. Mr. Walter said it. He said show-off rich people like pools and hard-working poor people like backyards. And who is Mr. Walter? Mom's neighbor. He's funny, tells jokes and sometimes gives us candy. Brandon felt a twinge of something he recognized as jealousy. There were other male figures in his son's lives, and he didn't know how he felt about that. Is he nice to you guys? Yeah, but he's not like you, Ethan quickly clarified. You're our dad. He's just a friend. The distinction brought relief, but also made Brandon realize how fatherhood was full of insecurities he had never imagined. At work, the situation with Jennifer had stabilized into a cordial professional relationship. She had been promoted to customer service supervisor after 6 months of excellent performance, and her professional confidence had grown significantly. "Congratulations on the promotion," Brandon said when he heard the news. "Thank you, and thank you for not interfering in the decision." "Why would I interfere?" "I don't know. Some men feel obligated to help the mothers of their children." "You don't need my professional help. You achieved this on your own." "It's good to hear that." During lunch that day, they ended up sitting at the same table in the company cafeteria. It was something they avoided to prevent comments from colleagues, but that day it happened naturally. "How are things at home?" he asked. "Better. With the promotion, I managed to rent a slightly better house, 2 bedrooms so the boys can have their own space." They mentioned it. They're excited about the move. "And you? How are you adapting to single life?" "Strangely well. The house feels more alive with the boys there on weekends." "And during the week?" "During the week I work, or I come visit you guys." "Brandon, don't you think you should, I don't know, go out with other people, build a new social life?" The suggestion caught him off guard. "Why are you encouraging me to go out with other people?" "Because it's not healthy for you to build your entire life around the boys and work." "And who said it's only about that? Isn't it?" He hesitated before answering. "Maybe it is, but it doesn't bother me. It should bother you. You deserve to have a full personal life." "And you? Have you been seeing anyone?" "Occasionally. Nothing serious." The answer sparked the same pang of jealousy he had felt upon hearing about Mr. Walter. "What do you mean occasionally?" "Brandon, that's none of your business." "Sorry, you're right. But since you asked, yes, I've gone out a few times with different people. Nothing evolved into a serious relationship." "Why?" "Because it's hard to explain my family situation. Look, I have twin boys, and their father works at the same company as me. We visit 3 times a week, but we're not a couple. It's not exactly an easy conversation for a first date." "I understand. And also because I've found my standards have changed. I don't just accept anything anymore just to avoid being alone." "What kind of standards?" "I want someone who's genuinely interested in the boys, who understands they come first, who is mature enough not to feel threatened by our unique family dynamic." "Sounds hard to find." "It is. But I'd rather be alone than in a relationship that doesn't work." The conversation left Brandon thoughtful. Jennifer had evolved a lot since their divorce, and he could see her emotional independence was genuine, not a facade. That evening, he visited the boys as usual, but found himself watching Jennifer interact with them. There was a natural maternal authority in her that he admired. She was firm when needed, always affectionate, and managed to balance discipline with fun in a way that seemed intuitive. "Mom, can I watch a little more TV?" Ethan tried to negotiate at bedtime. "No, sweetie. You have school early tomorrow." "But I'm not sleepy yet." "Then let's read a story." "Dad, do you want to read to them tonight?" she offered. "Sure." Brandon chose a book about pirate adventures and settled between the 2 boys on the bed. Jennifer sat in the chair nearby, sewing a loose button on Noah's shirt. It was such a simple domestic scene, yet so comforting, that Brandon caught himself wishing that was his permanent home. And so the brave pirate found the treasure he was looking for. He finished the story. "Dad, what's your treasure?" Noah asked sleepily. "The 2 of you," he answered without hesitation. "And yours, Mom?" Ethan directed the question to Jennifer. "The same as Dad's. You are my greatest treasure." "That's so cool, so we're both of your treasure." Noah celebrated before falling asleep. When they left the room, Jennifer walked Brandon to the door as usual. "They're amazing," he commented. "They really are. Sometimes I can't believe I managed to raise them so well on my own." "Not on your own. David helped for 5 years." "That's true, and now you're helping." "Jennifer, can I ask you a personal question?" "Depends on how personal." "Do you still feel anything for David?" "I feel gratitude. I feel affection for the person he was to us, but romantic love? No. I don't think I ever did, to be perfectly honest. Why did you marry him then?" Because I was desperate, pregnant, and he offered stability. It was a marriage of convenience that evolved into a respectful partnership. And do you regret it? The way it ended, yes. I should have told the truth from the start. But the decision to marry him, no. He gave us 5 years of stability we wouldn't have had otherwise. And if he came back, if he wanted to try again, it wouldn't work. He feels betrayed, and he has a right to that. Broken trust is hard to rebuild. And with me? Do you think the trust we had can be rebuilt? Brandon, just answer honestly. I think it's already being rebuilt. Slowly, but it is. You've been consistent, present, committed to the boys. That counts for a lot. But rebuilding trust as co-parents is different from rebuilding as a couple. Why does it have to be different? Because as co-parents, all that matters is the boys' well-being. As a couple, we'd have to deal with expectations, feelings, compatibility, all the reasons it didn't work out the first time. What if we're different people now? Brandon, let's not go down that road today, okay? We're building something good as it is. Let's not complicate things. Brandon nodded, but he knew the conversation was far from over. With each passing day, he felt more connected not only to his children, but to the life they had built together. A few weeks later, an unexpected event forced everyone to re-evaluate their dynamic. Ethan had a severe allergic reaction at school and had to be rushed to the hospital. Jennifer was in an important meeting when she got the call from the school. She ran to the hospital where she found Brandon already waiting. He had been the first on the emergency contact list. "How is he?" she asked, breathless. "Stable. They had to give him epinephrine, but the worst is over." "What caused the reaction?" "Peanuts. Apparently he ate a candy that contained traces of peanuts. But he's never had an allergy before. The doctor said allergies can develop at any time. We'll need to be extra careful from now on." They spent the afternoon at the hospital waiting for Ethan to be discharged. Noah had been brought from school by the principal and was worried about his brother. "Is Ethan going to be okay?" he asked for the 10th time. "He's going to be just fine," Brandon reassured him. "But now we know he can't eat anything with peanuts." "Can I not eat it either?" Noah wanted to know. "You can, but we'll be careful when we're all together." When Ethan was finally discharged, it was already night. Brandon insisted on driving them home and staying there until he was sure Ethan was completely well. "Dad, can you sleep here tonight?" Ethan asked, still a bit shaken by the day's events. Brandon looked at Jennifer, who nodded. "You can sleep on the sofa," she offered. "I think it would be good for them to know you're close by." It was the first time in years that Brandon spent the night in the same house as his children. He fell asleep listening to the familiar sounds of a house with kids, the noise of the heater, footsteps in the hallway when someone got up for water, the occasional murmur of conversation between the twins. The next morning, he woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Jennifer making breakfast. "Good morning," she said when he appeared in the kitchen. "Sleep well?" "Better than at home." "I wonder why." "Because here I feel needed. At home I feel empty." "Brandon." "No, let me finish. Yesterday at the hospital when I saw Ethan like that, the only thing going through my mind was that I want to be present for every important moment in their lives, good and bad. You are present. 3 times a week, every other weekend. That's not really being present. It's what we've managed to balance for now. What if we could manage more?" Jennifer stopped stirring the eggs in the pan. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that maybe it's time we thought about a more significant change in our dynamic." "What kind of change?" "Living in the same house, not necessarily as a couple, but as a family." The suggestion visibly tensed Jennifer. "Brandon, that's a terrible idea." "Why?" "Because it would be confusing for the boys. Because it would be confusing for us. Because we're not a couple and pretending we are would be a lie." "Who said anything about pretending? I'm talking about being honest about what we are." "And what are we?" "We're 2 people who love the same children and want the best for them." That defines co-parents, not people who live together. And why can't it define people who live together? Before Jennifer could answer, Ethan and Noah appeared in the kitchen, still in their pajamas. Good morning, Dad. Ethan ran to hug him. You stayed here all night. I did. I wanted to make sure you were okay. I'm great, and you, are you going to stay forever now? The innocent question echoed in the kitchen like an elephant in the room. Ethan, Daddy has his own house, Jennifer explained gently. But he could live with us too, Noah suggested. Our new house has 2 bedrooms. He can stay in your room, Mom. Noah, that's not how it works, Jennifer tried to explain. Why not? Ethan joined the campaign. Then we'd be a real family. We already are a real family, Brandon said, even living in different houses. But it would be better if we all lived together, Noah insisted. Maybe one day, Jennifer said diplomatically, but for now, it's good the way it is. When is one day? Ethan wanted a more specific answer. When Mom and Dad decide it's the right time. The answer satisfied the boys for the moment, but Brandon knew the issue would come up again, and the more he thought about it, the more the idea of living with them made sense to him. That afternoon, after Jennifer returned from work, they had a more serious conversation about the subject. Brandon, do you really think living together is a good idea? I think it's worth trying. Trying how, like a test? And if it doesn't work out, how do we explain to the boys that Daddy is moving out again? It wouldn't work out if we went into it thinking it won't work out. And if we went into it thinking it will work out but it doesn't? Jennifer, what exactly are you afraid of? Of many things. Of us getting emotionally complicated. Of you thinking that living together automatically means we're a couple again. Of me getting used to your constant presence and then missing you when it goes wrong. And what if I guarantee I won't pressure us to be a couple? How can you guarantee that? Because I've learned that what we have now is more important than what we could have. I won't risk our partnership as parents over romantic fantasies. Brandon, you've had time to process the divorce, to understand your feelings. I'm still figuring out who I am as an independent person. And living with me would prevent that? It could, because it would be easy to fall into old patterns, into dynamics that didn't work before. Or we could create new dynamics. Or we could disappoint each other again. Brandon realized Jennifer had a genuine fear of getting hurt again, and he couldn't blame her for that. Okay, he finally said, how about a middle ground? What do you mean? How about I rent a house near yours? Not on the same street, but in the same neighborhood. That way the boys can easily go back and forth between the 2 houses, and we can have more flexibility in their routine. That makes more sense. And over time, if everyone adjusts well, we can reassess the situation. Brandon, I don't want you to do this thinking we'll eventually live together. It might never happen. I understand, and I accept that. But as he said it, Brandon knew in his heart that he was willing to do anything to be more present in his children's lives, even if it meant never having a romantic relationship with Jennifer again. The process of finding a suitable house in Jennifer's neighborhood took a few weeks. Brandon visited several options, always taking the boys along so they could give their opinion. I like this one, Ethan declared, at a house with a big yard. We could have a soccer tournament. And this one has a good tree for climbing. Noah pointed to a mulberry tree in the back of the yard. Dad, you're going to have to learn how to cook, Ethan observed as they explored the kitchen. Why do you think that? Because Mom won't be here to cook for you. You guys can teach me, after all, you're experts at tasting food. The chosen house was 3 blocks from Jennifer's house. It had 2 bedrooms, a small living room, a kitchen, a backyard, and most importantly, it was a distance that allowed the boys to walk from one house to the other, yet still maintained everyone's independence. Now you guys are going to have 2 houses, Noah celebrated on moving day. It's like having 2 worlds, Ethan added poetically. The new dynamic worked better than anyone had expected. The boys spent weekdays with Jennifer, but had dinner at Brandon's house twice a week. On Saturdays they stayed with him, and on Sundays they alternated between the 2 houses depending on plans. How is it having 2 homes? Jennifer asked the boys after a few weeks. It's cool, Noah replied. At Dad's house there's video games and a big backyard. At your house there's you and yummy food. And where do you feel more at home? Both places, Ethan said simply. Home is where the people we love are. The answer touched both Brandon and Jennifer deeply. As the months passed, the new routine settled in naturally. Brandon learned to cook basic dishes. Jennifer relaxed about having to be present for every moment of her children's lives, and the boys flourished having two homes where they felt loved and secure. "You know what's funny?" Jennifer commented one afternoon when she was at Brandon's house, helping him assemble a bookshelf for the boys' books. "What?" "We work better as a family apart than we worked as a couple together." "Why do you think that happens?" "Because now each of us has our own space, our own responsibilities, our independence. We're not trying to be something we're not. And what exactly are we? We are two adults who respect each other, who raised amazing people together, and who found a way to be a family without following traditional patterns. Are you happy with that?" "I am. And you?" "I am too, happier than I imagined possible. Even without a romantic partner. Jennifer, I have you and the boys in my life. I have a family. I have purpose. I have love. What more could I want? Romantic companionship, physical intimacy, someone to share dreams and future plans with. And who says I can't have those things with you?" The question slipped out before he could filter it. Jennifer stopped holding the shelf and looked at him seriously. "Brandon, I know, let's not go down that road today. But you asked what I wanted, and the honest answer is that I want all of that with you. What if we try and it goes wrong again? What if we try and it goes right? The chances of it going wrong are higher, statistically speaking. Since when do you make decisions based on statistics? Since I have two children who depend on my emotional stability. What if I promise that no matter what happens between us, the boys will always have our partnership as parents? You can't promise that. No one can. I can try. Trying isn't enough, Brandon. The boys don't deserve to be guinea pigs in our emotional experiment." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of the boys themselves, coming from school. "Dad, Mom!" Ethan shouted when he saw them together. "You're in the same house." "I'm helping your dad assemble a bookshelf," Jennifer explained. "You guys look like a real couple when you do things together," Noah observed. "Noah, we've talked about this," Jennifer said patiently. "I know, but I can dream, right?" The innocent observation created a moment of tension that was quickly broken by the need to help Ethan with his math homework. That night, after Jennifer and the boys returned home, Brandon kept thinking about the conversation they had. He knew he was falling in love with Jennifer again, but he also knew that pushing would be the fastest way to lose everything they had built. He decided to give it time. If something were to happen between them, it would happen naturally. If not, at least he would have his children and an exceptional partner in raising them. During the following months, Brandon dedicated himself to being the best father he could be. He attended school meetings, took the boys to the doctor when needed, organized birthday parties, helped with school projects, and gradually became a constant and reliable presence in their lives. "Dad, can you take me to the dentist tomorrow?" Ethan asked on a Thursday night. "Of course. Can't Mommy go?" "She can, but she said you can too, and I want it to be you this time." "Why do you want it to be me?" "Because you get more nervous than Mommy when I'm scared. Then I feel less alone in my fear." The observation touched Brandon deeply. His children were beginning to see him not just as a present figure, but as someone who truly understood and shared their emotions. "Noah also wants it to be you," Ethan continued. "He said you hold our hand tighter when we're scared." That night, Brandon told Jennifer about the conversation. "They really trust you," she said with a smile. "It's good to know. For a long time I was afraid of being just the fun weekend dad. You were never just that. They see you as a safe harbor too." "And how do you see me?" "As the father of my children, as my partner in raising them, as someone I can completely trust when it comes to their well-being." "Just that?" Jennifer hesitated before answering. "As someone who has changed a lot and surprises me positively every day." "In what way?" "You've become empathetic in a way you weren't before. Patient. Present. You really listen. You don't just wait for your turn to speak. And does that attract you?" "Brandon. Sorry, I shouldn't have asked that. Yes, you should. And the answer is yes, it attracts me. But attraction isn't enough to rebuild a relationship." "What would be enough?" "Complete trust. Compatibility in life goals. Certainty that we're not confusing our love for the boys with love for each other." "And how would we find that out without trying?" "I don't know. Maybe some things can't be discovered with total safety. The conversation was interrupted by Noah, who appeared in the living room in his pajamas. "Noah, you should be sleeping," Jennifer said. "I can't sleep. I'm thinking about something." "What are you thinking about?" Brandon asked. "If you guys date again, are you going to get married?" "Noah, we're not dating," Jennifer answered. "But if you did?" "That's a very hypothetical question," Brandon tried to deflect. "What's hypothetical?" "It means something that could happen but probably won't happen," Jennifer explained. "Oh, so you could date but probably won't?" "Something like that." "Why not?" The simple question demanded an answer neither of them was prepared to give. "Because some things are complicated for adults, son," Brandon said. "But you like each other. I see that you like each other." "How do you see that?" Jennifer asked, curious. "You smile differently when you're together, and you keep looking at each other when you think no one is watching." The observation was so accurate it left them both speechless. "And you're happy together, like happier than when you're apart," Noah continued. "Noah, you're very smart for a 5-year-old, Brandon commented. 6. I already had my birthday. That's right, sorry. So, are you going to date or not? We'll think about it, Jennifer said diplomatically. For how long? For as long as necessary. Okay, but I think you should date. You go well together. And with that declaration, Noah went back to his room, leaving two confused adults pondering the wisdom of a child. He's not wrong, Brandon said quietly. About what? About us going well together. About us being happier together. Brandon, a 6-year-old doesn't understand the complexities of an adult relationship. But maybe he understands what's more important than the complexities. What would be more important? Love, respect, compatibility, the desire to be together. Do you think we have all that? I think we've developed all that over the last few months. And you think that's enough? I think it's a start, a much better start than we had the first time. Jennifer was silent for a long moment. If we were to try, she finally said, it would have to be very slow. No rush, no pressure, no unrealistic expectations. I agree. And on the condition that if it doesn't work, our partnership as parents remains intact. I agree to that too. And you'd have to accept that maybe I'll never be ready for it, and that's okay. I accept. Really? You truly accept the possibility of us never having a romantic relationship? I accept, because having you in my life as family, even if not as a couple, is more than I ever dreamed of having. Okay then. Okay, what? Let's try. Very slowly. Let's see if we can rediscover each other as people, not just as parents. How would we do that? Maybe dates? Occasional ones, when the boys are at school or asleep. No rush, no specific goals other than getting to know who we are now. Would it be like dating? It would be like rediscovery. The word felt right to both of them. When would we start this rediscovery? How about Saturday night? The boys can sleep at your house and maybe we can have dinner together. Just the two of us. Like a date? Like a conversation between adults without interruptions from kids asking if they can have more cookies. Brandon laughed. I accept the proposal. And so, after more than a year of rebuilding as a family, Brandon and Jennifer decided to explore the possibility of rebuilding as a couple. The first date was at Jennifer's house on Saturday night. Brandon cooked, one of the skills he had developed, while she tidied up the house after the boys left for his place. Smells good, she commented when she arrived from his house. I hope the taste matches the smell. How were they? Excited to sleep at Dad's house. Ethan said he likes the noise your refrigerator makes. Noah said your pillow is softer than his. You spoil them. A little, but within the limits you set. Thank you for respecting the limits. During dinner, they talked about topics that had nothing to do with the boys. Jennifer talked about her plans to take an English course to better qualify herself at work. Brandon talked about a company project to expand to other cities. It's strange to talk only about us, she observed. Good strange or bad strange? Good strange. I had forgotten that we are interesting people beyond being parents. You were always interesting. I was the one who had forgotten to pay attention. Why do you think that changed? Because now I understand that paying attention to the people we love is more important than paying attention to work. And what else has changed about you? Brandon thought carefully before answering. I learned that success isn't measured only in money or social status. I learned that being needed is better than being important. And I learned that true love is about consistency, not grand gestures. These are significant changes. They were necessary changes. And you? How have you changed? I've become more confident in my own opinions, more willing to fight for what I believe in, less willing to accept anything just to keep the peace. That makes you even more attractive to me. Why? Because now I know that if you choose to be with me, it's because you really want to be, not because you feel obligated or dependent. The honesty of the conversation created an intimacy different from what they had experienced as young adults. It was an intimacy based on real knowledge, not just physical attraction or convenience. May I kiss you? Brandon asked as they were saying goodbye at the door. You may. It was a soft, cautious kiss, full of history and possibility at the same time. How was it? He asked. Familiar and new at the same time. In what sense? Familiar, because I remember kissing you. New because we are different people now. And how did you feel about that? Good, strangely good. During the following weeks, Brandon and Jennifer had several similar dates. Always discreet, always when the boys weren't around, always focused on rediscovering each other as people. Mom has been happier lately, Noah commented one Sunday morning. Why do you think that? Brandon asked, trying to sound casual. She sings in the shower again. She stopped singing after Dad David left, but she started singing again. And what do you think about that? I think it's good. I like it when she's happy. What about you, Ethan? Have you noticed anything different? Mum smiles more when you're here, and you seem happier too. How so? You laugh more, and you make more silly jokes. The children's observations confirmed what Brandon already knew. He was falling in love with Jennifer again, but this time in a more mature and conscious way. How do you feel about what we're building? He asked one night 2 months after their first date. Scared and hopeful at the same time. Scared why? Because I'm allowing myself to feel things for you again, and hopeful, because this time it feels different. Different how? More solid. Based on who we really are, not on who we thought the other should be. Do you think we're ready to take the next step? What next step do you have in mind? Maybe you're not hiding from the boys anymore that we're exploring the possibility of being a couple again. They already suspect. Noah asked yesterday if you were going to spend Christmas with us. And what did you say? That you probably would, but I wasn't sure yet. And how would you like Christmas to be? I'd like it to be with you, with all of us together. Then let's do that. Let's spend Christmas together, as a family. And after Christmas, if all goes well, maybe we can talk to the boys about the possibility of us living together again. Do you think they'd be happy? I think they'd be thrilled. And you? How would you feel about living with me again? Like I was home. Christmas was magical. For the first time in years, they functioned like a traditional nuclear family. Brandon slept at Jennifer's house on Christmas Eve. They all woke up together on Christmas morning, opened presents as a family, and cooked together. This was the best Christmas of my life, Ethan declared that night. Why was it the best? Jennifer asked. Because you were both here, and you were happy together. You noticed we were happy together, Brandon wanted to know. Of course, Noah answered. You were looking at each other all day with googly eyes. Noah, Jennifer laughed. Where did you learn that expression? On TV, but it's true, you're in love again, aren't you? Brandon looked at Jennifer, who nodded almost imperceptibly. We're trying to figure that out, he answered honestly. And what have you figured out so far? Ethan asked. We've figured out that we really like being together as a family. And what else? That we respect each other and take good care of each other. Does that mean you're going to get married again? Noah got straight to the point. It means we're thinking about living together again, Jennifer replied. How would you feel about that? Happy, They both answered in unison. Really? You're not worried it might go wrong like the first time? You're different now, Ethan said simply. Before you used to argue. Now you talk. And before you used to get mad at each other, Noah added. Now you laugh together. The children's wisdom was, once again, impressive in its simplicity and accuracy. And if we decide to try living together, Jennifer said, do you understand it will be an adjustment period, that there might be some conflicts and difficulties? Every family has conflicts, Ethan said philosophically. Mr. Walter explained that to us. What else did Mr. Walter explain? Brandon asked, still a bit bothered by the neighbor's influence on his children. That a good family isn't a family that never fights. It's a family that always makes up after fighting. Mr. Walter is wise, Jennifer commented, and he said you two are stubborn but that you really like each other, Noah added. When did you talk to Mr. Walter about us? Brandon wanted to know. When Mommy was sad after you showed up the first time, he said adults sometimes take a long time to understand what kids get right away. And what do kids get right away? That love is simpler than adults think. Mr. Walter's words, filtered through the children's interpretation, resonated deeply with Brandon. Maybe they really were complicating something that could be simple. Okay, he finally said, if you're ready for us to try being a family living in the same house, and if Mommy agrees, we'll try. I agree, Jennifer said, but let's do it right this time. What do you mean, right? We'll talk about expectations, about house rules, about how to divide responsibilities. We'll plan how to handle conflicts when they come up, and we'll do it as a conscious decision, not as something that happens because it's convenient. I agree. And we'll give ourselves at least 6 months to make sure it works before we make more permanent decisions, like marriage. 6 months is too short, Noah protested. Why do you think it's too short? Jennifer asked. Because I've already waited 6 years to have a complete family. I can wait another 6 months. Noah's emotional math was wrong, but the feeling behind it was touching. Then it's decided, Brandon said. We'll be an experimental family for 6 months. Experimental family? Ethan laughed. Sounds like a lab family. Maybe we are a bit like that, Jennifer admitted. We'll try new ways of being happy together. And so, in January, Brandon moved into Jennifer's house. It wasn't a complete move. He kept his house as an office and personal space, but he started sleeping there every night with his family. The first months were an emotional roller coaster. There were moments of pure domestic happiness, Saturday mornings in bed with all 4 of them together, family dinners every night, shared routines that created a sense of normalcy and belonging. But there were also conflicts, arguments about disciplining the children, about how much time Brandon should dedicate to work, about how to divide household chores, about boundaries of privacy and independence. Sometimes I feel like you're trying to make up for 7 lost years by being too permissive with them, Jennifer said after an argument about bedtime. And sometimes I feel like you're being too strict because you're afraid of losing the authority you built as a single mother, Brandon replied. Maybe we're both right, she conceded. Maybe I need to relax a little and you need to be firmer. How do we find the balance? By talking, like we're doing now, instead of holding on to resentments. These frank conversations had become routine, unlike the first marriage when they avoided conflicts until they exploded. Now they addressed problems as soon as they arose. I need more personal space, Jennifer said on a Sunday evening. I love having you here, but sometimes I miss having the house just for me and the boys. How much space do you need? Maybe 1 night a week where you sleep at your house. And maybe some Sunday mornings where I can stay in bed late without feeling obligated to make breakfast for everyone. That makes sense. I miss having my own space sometimes too. Really? It's not just me? It's definitely not just you. Living together is great, but sometimes it's too intense. Establishing these boundaries, paradoxically, strengthened the relationship. They both felt freer to enjoy their time together, knowing they would also have time apart. How do you think we're doing? Brandon asked after 3 months of living together. Better than I expected. It's not perfect, but it's real. Real like a real family. With conflicts, resolutions, routines, special moments. and hard moments. It's not a fairy tale, but it's sustainable. And how do you feel about us as a couple? I feel like we're building something solid. It's not the desperate passion we had when we were young, but it's something deeper. Do you miss the desperate passion? Sometimes. But I prefer what we have now. It's more comfortable, safer, more compatible with having kids and responsibilities. Jennifer. Yes? I love you. In a different way than before, but maybe in a better way. How is it different? Before I loved you because you completed a fantasy I had about how my life should be. Now I love you because you are who you are, with all your qualities and imperfections. And I love you too, in a way that doesn't scare me anymore. Why doesn't it scare you? Because now I know I can be myself and still be loved. And I know that even if it doesn't work out, I would survive. But do you think it won't work out? No. For the first time, I really believe it can work. At the end of the 6-month trial, they had a family meeting to discuss the future. How did you feel about Daddy living here? Jennifer asked the boys. It was the best time of our life, Ethan answered without hesitation. What did you like the most? Having both of you here every night, Noah said, and waking up with both of you here every morning. And what didn't you like? When you argued about who would pick us up from school, Ethan recalled. But you always made up afterward, Noah added quickly. And the arguments weren't real arguments, they were more like loud conversations. And how would you feel if Daddy kept living here forever? Happy, they both answered. And if he left and went back to living at his house? Sad, Ethan admitted, but we would understand. Understand how? If you couldn't be happy together, we wouldn't want you to stay together just because of us, Noah explained. But you can be happy together, Ethan added quickly. We see that you can. And how do you see that? You smile more. You hug sometimes when you think we're not looking. And you make plans together for things like vacations and weekends. And what do you think that means? That you're in love again, Noah said simply. We never stopped loving each other, Brandon clarified. We just needed to learn to love each other better. And did you manage to? Ethan asked. I think so, Jennifer replied. What do you think? I think so too, Brandon agreed. So are you going to get married again? Noah wanted to know. Maybe one day, Jennifer said, but for now we're happy living together as a family. Okay, but can I tell my friends at school that you're my stepmom? Noah, I am your biological mother. Oh, that's right, so can I say you're a couple again? You can say we're a family, Brandon answered diplomatically. A happy family, Ethan added. A happy family, everyone agreed. And so not with grand declarations or dramatic gestures, but with honest conversations and conscious decisions, Brandon and Jennifer rebuilt not just a family, but a more mature and sustainable love. 6 months later, on a Sunday afternoon, while the boys played in the backyard, Brandon asked a question he had been considering for weeks. Jennifer, would you like to marry me again? What do you mean? Like a renewal of vows. A new commitment based on who we are now, not who we were before. Why do you want to get married again? Because I want to make sure you know my commitment to this family is for life. And because I want the boys to have the security of knowing their parents chose to be together officially. What if I say no? Then we continue exactly as we are, and I'm happy that way too. What if I say yes? Then we have a small ceremony, just the 4 of us, and make official what we already know, that we are a family forever. Jennifer thought for a few minutes, watching her sons play. Yes, she said finally, I want to marry you again. Really, really. But I want us to write our own vows, and I want the boys to be part of the ceremony. How would they participate? I don't know. Maybe by making their own vows too, family vows. I would really like that. The ceremony took place 3 months later in their backyard, with only a justice of the peace, the 4 family members, Mrs. Dorothy, who had become a second grandmother to the boys, and, surprisingly, Mr. Walter, who had become an unofficial counselor to the family. Brandon's vows were simple. I promised to be the father and husband I didn't know how to be before, but that I learned to be with the help of you 3. Jennifer's vows were, I promise to keep being who I am, but to always consider our family in my decisions. Ethan's vows were, I promise not to fight too much with Noah and to always hug you when you're sad. Noah's vows were, I promise to try to eat more vegetables and to always tell the truth, even when it's hard. And Mr. Walter, whom they asked to say a few words, summed it all up. A good family is a family that chooses to stay together every day, not just once. End of story. And now, dear listeners, tell me what you thought of this story. Do you think Brandon made the right decisions? Do you believe Jennifer was wise to give a second chance? And the boys, weren't they the heart of it all? Leave your honest opinions in the comments about this family that found its way back to love. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories like this one.